usually at about the halfway point. And again, I kind of like look at what I've got. I put all my cards on the table and I'm listening to some of the recordings and I'm looking at some of my drawings and I'm reading the crap that I wrote in my script. And I just think, this is it. This is the year that I've fucked it. This is... Every year I think that though, but every single year you sort of need to be able to see the forest for the trees, I guess, and just be like, okay, look, it's not done. It's, when it's all together and the music's there, that'll help that scene and whatever. But yeah, every single year I hit that same wall and I just think, oh God, this is a lot of crap. And yeah, this is the year that I've finally screwed it up and everyone's going to laugh me out of town. But that's only been true once or twice. Most, like 75% of the time, it's like, actually, no, if you push through that, you can actually, wind up with something you're really happy with.
Kia koutou, welcome to the 48 Hours podcast. I'm Ruth, I'm one of the national managers and I'm here with Sam Harris, animator and winner of the lockdown 48 Hours event.
Kia ora, Ruth, good to be here.
Thanks, Sam. Hey, let's just start with you introducing yourself.
Sure. So my name's Sam. I am from Christchurch originally, but I've been mostly based in Wellington. I did spend a little bit of time in London and Berlin. I work as a freelance animator mostly, but I do a little bit of visual effects and editing and get on set very rarely. But so a little bit of mishmash, but I've been freelancing for about 9 years now. So yeah, it's every day's a bit different.
Yeah, I bet. And how long have you been doing 48 Hours?
I was a pretty early adopter. My first year was, I think, 2006, which was either the second or the third one.
Oh, wow. That's about when I started too.
Yeah.
God, it's going back a while. Well, yeah, my next question is, how did it all begin? And I guess in terms of your career and 48 Hours, have they sort of been a bit intertwined or?
Yeah, for sure. 48 Hours, I think I heard about it just purely through word of mouth. Like I hadn't seen it advertised anywhere. I was in Christchurch at the time. I was studying at uni. And I think I just actually heard a couple of my mates talking about how they did it last year. And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. And I sort of know how to make films-ish. And then, the first like 3 or 4 years of my films are just absolute throwaway garbage. Partially because I was young and inexperienced and also partially because just technology, like in the early days of the competition, you had to
so bad
burn it to a DV tape and that sort of screwed a lot of people up. And just technology's come a long way, like it's a lot harder to sort of screw things up these days. In terms of the competition and my career being intertwined, like 100%. I think the first time I met you, I was being interviewed for a job at the Learning Connection in an art school.
That's right.
And you actually said, like, oh, it says here you've done 48 Hours. It says you're Squint Eastwood. And I was like, yeah. And then you were like, oh, I loved your film and blah, blah, blah. And then, yeah, I ended up getting that job. I'm not saying because of my film.
Well, no,
but
actually, funny story is, because I remember you carefully sent in some of your kind of nice, kind of proper formal kind of work, and we watched it and we were like, oh, that's kind of nice, but maybe a little square. And then we dug out your 48 Hours work and I was like, oh my God, the students are going to love this. It's wild. So actually, yeah, totally.
Well, there you go, folks. You heard it.
How else, has 48 Hours kind of worked through with your career, do you think?
It's just been a very big part of my creative life, I'd say. Like, I think, like a lot of people, I want to do a lot of my own personal projects, but just life gets in the way. You come home from working 6 or 7 or 8 hours and, like, the last thing you feel like doing is getting back in front of the computer. So, like, I just really need that, red hot poker up my ass of a 48-hour deadline to actually make something cool. And then, like, yeah, sometimes you produce your greatest work under duress and under frantic energy, like it stokes the fires, I think.
Oh, and have you, so you're really an animator.
Yep.
That's a lot of where your professional life is. Have you always animated in 48 Hours?
No, like I said, the first 3 or 4 films I did traditionally, as a team, with a bunch of people, and we just shot a bunch of stuff on a DV camera and edited it in Final Cut Pro 7 and tried to get it all done. But then I actually remember I hadn't really done much actual character animation or even really any animation. And one year I was just like, actually, I use After Effects for all my kind of visual effects stuff. And, I think you can kind of move layers around and maybe if I just experiment with this, I can kind of get the semblance of some character animation going. So I kind of experimented with that and I used hand-drawn assets at the time. I thought it was cool to actually use actual pen and ink and just do these really scrappy drawings where you could see like the pencil lines that hadn't properly been erased and all that stuff like that. And I scanned those in and then, photoshopped them out of the background and kind of puppeteered them around the canvas. And that was my first animated film. That was Greenwich Mean Time. That was 2009. That was the first time I made the finals and the first time I won an award. I got Best Animation.
Cool. And your animation's kind of, I suppose, evolved since then. Do you want to sort of talk a little bit about like your animation style now?
Yeah, sure. So like I'd say the first 3 48-hour films I did was done in a similar way. Like I drew all the assets on pen and paper and scanned them and then animated them. I did realize like I kind of liked the way they looked, but it was just a massive time suck. Like just hours and hours and hours of like scanning things and importing them and using Photoshop to cut out the little edges and clean up all the little pixels and things. It just kind of took forever, and like you just really need to use every second of time that you have as best you can. So I've sort of experimented with a few different styles. I think one year I did it just entirely on the computer. I just made all the little characters and things just with actual kind of vector lines and things like that. But what I've settled on lately is just really quickly sketching things out on my iPad and then just throwing them onto the computer. So that way it sort of maintains a little bit of that hand-drawn kind of roughness and a little bit of life. But it doesn't, you don't have to faff around with scanners and stuff.
Awesome. So, I mean, it's pretty more of a solo kind of a process that you do, yeah?
Yeah, it's almost entirely me. Yeah, I did kind of eventually start, like I said, I started on a team with a bunch of people recording things. And then, Squint Eastwood was like kind of just a small team as well. Like I had a few people helping me, but then, I don't know, other people lost interest that it was just me. I get voice actors to help me. Like I do voices myself, but I mostly rely on external friends and stuff for voice performance. And then, it's mostly just me kind of locked in a room, just going insane for 2 days.
And do you sleep at all?
Yeah, I've sort of mixed up how much sleep I get. I think the early days I just tried to, I think my strategy was just like when I collapse from exhaustion, that's when I sleep. And like I'll just kind of sleep in my chair.
Sounds healthy.
Yeah, actually the last one I did, the one last year, I got a bit cocky and I was like, I've done this. This ain't my first rodeo. I can get a little bit of sleep and it'll probably be fine. So I slept like proper full nights both nights. I mean, I say proper full nights. I mean like 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, and then that year I was massively behind and I was like, that was stupid. I got a bit cocky.
So I guess animation is really quite intensive. What sort of hacks, shortcuts, and I mean, I guess technology is like wildly evolving in this space as well. Like, how do you use technology to speed stuff up, to kind of make things more efficient? What, for all of the potential animators hopefully out there who want to come and do 48 hours, what are the kind of things that they can think about and look at doing?
Sure. Yeah, well, I mean, the type of animation I do could barely be called animation at all, really. It's more like just sort of puppeteering images around the screen in clever ways. One year, actually, the year that 4 Generations, the one I did in 2020, I actually did, like every single frame of that was its own drawing. And I did that just as a challenge to myself. I was like, maybe I could do it the other way. And that one is really rough. Like in the end, I had to just speed run it and just do a squiggle and be like, that's a person, fine, move on. I do really like the way that one looks, though. That one has like a lot of life to it. But
that's also like won the entire competition that year too. So, I mean, it's sort of fair to say that sometimes you don't need to get too fussy about the technical stuff if the story's actually really awesome and being served, right?
Yeah, that's kind of my whole MO. Like, I very early on, I was like, well, I can't really draw. I'm just going to like lean into the scrappiness and just have it be, a bit kind of grunge, a bit punk rock, and just, it is what it is. And people seem to like it, yeah.
I guess it's got its own style. I mean, I remember some VFX guy telling me how it was all about, with VFX stuff, you do like the biggest, big epic shot, and then all the other shots are just like one sort of close-up on some sort of static face, and that's kind of the way it feels like something's really amazing, because you sort of put all your eggs in one basket and show off in this one spot, and then people are sort of impressed enough that you can get away with stuff. Do you sort of do a bit of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think I always keep an eye on the clock, and there's always like a panic where it reaches... usually Sunday morning, and I realize I don't have a single frame of anything animated. Like, I have 0 film. All I have is like a bunch of recordings I've edited, a bunch of music, a bunch of sound effects, and a bunch of drawings. And I'm like, oh, crap. But then I realize, like, it happens to me every year, and every year I think, oh, crap. But then I realize that, like, doing the drawings and, like, staging things out and composing the shots and things, that's the hard part. Like, the actual animation side of things doesn't really take that long, again, because of the type of animation it is and the technology. You're just kind of moving things around and puppeteering them around.
Cool. Well, this is probably a good question for you. Are there any crisis moments in the competition that you've had? How do you recover? I mean, you've obviously learned a lot doing it for over a decade,
Yeah.
nearly 2 decades. How do you deal with absolute disaster?
I guess I'm kind of lucky in that I haven't had a software update go bad or knocked a cup of coffee onto the computer or anything like that. It's more just like a crisis of faith, I guess. Like, I every single year I hit a wall, usually at about the halfway point. And again, I kind of look at what I've got. I put all my cards on the table and I'm listening to some of the recordings and I'm looking at some of my drawings and I'm reading the crap that I wrote in my script. And I just think, this is it. This is the year that I've fucked it. This is... Every year I think that though, but every single year you sort of need to be able to see the forest for the trees, I guess, and just be like, okay, look, it's not done. It's, when it's all together and the music's there, that'll help that scene and whatever. But yeah, every single year I hit that same wall and I just think, oh God, this is a lot of crap. And yeah, this is the year that I've finally screwed it up and everyone's going to laugh me out of town. But that's only been true once or twice. Most, 75% of the time, it's like, actually, no, if you push through that, you can actually, wind up with something you're really happy with.
I feel like that's something we hear, I've heard that story heaps from different people where they're like, oh gosh, we get to Saturday night and we're like, what are we even making? And I feel like the teams who then go, let's rewrite it and shoot something different, then it just doesn't work out. But the teams that go, you know what, on Friday night when we wrote this, we liked it and we've been working for 15 hours and we're super tired and we've got no perspective. Let's just keep going with the plan. And the other teams where often their films actually turn out pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, 100%. That feeling is not exclusive to animation. I think a lot of teams feel that way. Because, yeah, not even in 48 Hours, just in life. Sometimes you watch something that you've shot and there's no music on it or anything yet, and you just think oh, God. But yeah, you just need to have a little faith and just push through.
It's like the first edit. I feel like the number of times I've watched the first edit with the director and we've all gone, oh, what have we done? This is terrible. Sometimes people cry, but then... the second edit's always heaps better.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's happened to me enough times now where I'm like, it's just the first edit. We'll just have a cry. We'll just do the next one. I know you're an animator, but really the thing that's made your film stand out have been the stories. And you make some pretty great comedies, kind of pretty edgy sometimes. You've certainly pushed the boat. I think you were saying you managed to get an R13 rating one year, which is rare
for the whole finals that it was a part of. Yeah. So a bunch of children couldn't make that show just because of me.
Yeah, for your animation, which I suppose is usually for kids. But so yeah, how do you come up with your stories? How do you know it's a good story? What sort of stories do you like to tell?
Yeah, it's a really hard thing to kind of put into words. I think a lot of storytelling is just kind of innate and just comes from the human experience and you want things to fall into certain categories and make sense in a certain way. It all just kind of comes to me. I just sort of close my eyes and see weird things. I like to go for a walk, I think. On the first night when I'm coming up with the story, I just go out and just walk in the cold or whatever for ages, and for whatever reason, just getting the blood pumping and getting moving around, I just sort of start to vaguely think of ideas. Obviously using the kind of genre and elements and things as a starting point. Sometimes just kind of sort of images come to me, just sort of one scene, and I just think oh yeah, that's funny, I'll try to work that in somehow, and then just kind of work backwards from there and try to stick a good ending on it, and yeah.
It feels to me that as well, a lot of your films are comedies, but they're quite sort of dark comedies or a bit dry humour, I think I remember there was a whole bit where you're sort of hassling everyone putting arugula and other kind of fancy food names and things on pizza. And I think it's 4 Generations, there's all of the making fun of the, your parents trying to work out how stuff works. It's kind of like you sort of just make kind of humorous stuff about almost your own life and your friends, yeah?
Yeah, I think... I have quite a specific taste in comedy and stuff. I like a lot of weird, surreal stuff like Tim and Eric and things like that. I did draw from life a little bit with that one. Not intentionally, though. I didn't actually realize until the end that it is kind of based on my relationship with my parents a little bit. I didn't notice it until my mum called me out. She's like, oh, thanks, Sam. That's real nice. And I was like, it's not based on you. But then I realized that in the film, there's a line where it's oh, I'm making a meme for your Auntie Kate or something, and my mum's sister is called Kate, so that was where I realized I must have just completely subconsciously drawn on the real life experience, because yeah, I think a lot of millennials, we sort of have to help our parents out with technology a little bit, and that's sort of the theme of that film.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly struck a chord with a lot of people. I was like, yeah, almost could have been a documentary of my life with, trying to talk your parents through some crazy stuff. And I think that's kind of what's been quite successful, is you've sort of, we had we just had Molly in, and we were talking to her, and we were sort of talking about how, like, sometimes people think that they want to make a particular type of film to win 48 hours, but increasingly, you know, the films where people make the thing that they're good at and that sort of speaks to them are often the things that are actually successful.
Yeah, for sure. I think early days I was really focused on trying to win or trying to make the finals or whatever. And I remember very early on having like a really like competitive attitude. Like if one of my friends made the finals or something, I'd be like, "Oh, you bastard." But then I kind of realized like we're all in it together and we're all kind of helping each other out and stuff. Yeah, so the second film I made after my first kind of success, like making the finals, getting the best animation award, I was like, okay, well, you know, I've had some success. I'm going to try to push it. I'm going to try to like, you know, make the finals and stuff. So I tried to make this really like sort of sincere, dramatic, like it was a comedy, but it had like I was trying to have moments of like, you know, real sincerity and real like I was trying to make people cry basically, and that's not who I am. That's not what I'm good at. And like the whole thing was an absolute failure, and I had to just flush it down the toilet. I didn't even go to the screening.
Oh no!
So yeah, I think the years that I've done the best is where I've just like been absolutely true to myself and true to my sense of humor and true to the films that I like to watch, and just like leaned into that.
I guess there's certainly some genres which are a bit more complicated than others if you're doing live action, sci-fi, horror. But I guess if you're animating, you can just create your own world, right?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I like doing animation is you're not limited in the script stage at all. You can come up with whatever crazy crap you want. You could have it set on a pirate ship. You could have it set in outer space. And, you know, if you were filming live action, you'd need to actually problem solve that and work out the logistics of making that happen on screen. But yeah, there's like no limits when you're making an animation, which is quite cool. I guess the flip side to that, though, is like, I remember somebody saying like, oh, if you just need a shot of a car going by, if you're a live action person, you can just go out and sit outside and film that. But if you just need like a little insert of a car going by in animation, you're like, okay, and then you have to draw the car and you have to draw the background or whatever. So it's a little bit of give and take both ways. But yeah, I enjoy the freedom of just coming up with whatever crazy idea I want and then being able to make it.
The other thing, I suppose, which everyone's talking about at the moment is artificial intelligence. Do you use AI tools in your work, and have you brought them into 48 Hours? Obviously, we've got guidelines on our website that everyone can check about AI, but, you know, as obviously, I think particularly for animation, there's so much potential and opportunity there to save time, to do shortcuts, to use those kinds of tools. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, it's a pretty new thing, I think, for me and for the world. So I haven't used it that much. I use it a lot in my day-to-day life, just with like the generative tools in Photoshop for filling in backgrounds and stuff. I think I was speaking earlier about having to, you know, cut out things pixel by pixel, and now it's like a one-click process. So that side of AI I respect tremendously. Yeah, the last one I did experiment with AI a little bit for the backgrounds, because a lot of times I spend so much time on the character animation, I've got nothing in the background, it's just a black screen, and I have to very quickly throw something in there to make it look like it's within a setting, and usually I'd use stock images, so I just pay for a stock website and, you know, Google, you know, kitchen background or something, and then I just really quickly place that in at the last minute. But yeah, the last year was quite good because I used Adobe Firefly, which is the Adobe AI model. It's not great, but it is like clear to use, I think, because it uses like Adobe stock for all its machine learning.
Yep.
So I used that a little bit, and it was kind of the same thing. Basically, I could put in like I need a kitchen background, but I could be a little bit more specific. I could be like a kitchen background with a blender on the left-hand side and a tree on the right-hand side or whatever, and it could spit that out for me. I think the AI-generated images look like AI-generated images, though, and like when I watched that one back, that was the year that I got cocky with my sleep and ran out of time. When I watched that one back, I kind of like, I'm a little bit like, ugh, because yeah, you can kind of notice the AI-ness of the background, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look very good, does it? So if I had a little bit more time, I could have like, you know, touched that up manually or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting time we live in.
It is, definitely. It's interesting you're talking about using stock images and that kind of as a resource, because I sometimes think people forget that there's just a whole mountain of stock material that people can also kind of source that's all legit, you know, within the competition as well.
There was a really wild animation that was submitted for 48 Hours a few years ago. I don't know if you remember it, and it was all made up of like kind of cut up stock images and newspaper clippings, and it had like a goose or something and a cat. And
a duck, yeah.
Yeah.
That was really cool. It was sort of crossover animation, crossover stock. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that one was amazing. So yeah, you could do something like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, it is. I think it's the biggest question, I think, with AI in 48 Hours. I think everyone sort of thinks that they can just get AI to make their film, but, you know, I think what we're looking for is that sort of human creative kind of spark.
Yeah.
And also use it as a tool to save time. But why?
I think the people judging the competition and the people viewing the competition are wily enough to kind of spot AI slop when they see it. So, like,
Yeah.
I'd say use it, but don't use it as a crutch. Like, don't expect to click a button and make a film. Like, you do need to put in some actual elbow grease as well.
And also, why bother? Like, if you're just going to click a button, make a film, like, why pay the entry fee and turn up? Like, and I think we've probably mostly covered everything, but maybe it might just be good to sort of wrap up with, if you've sort of got any advice, maybe specifically for animators. We'd love to see more animations in 48 Hours. We've seen some, especially over lockdown, we got heaps of great ones, but everyone seems pretty keen to get back into live action. But I know there's lots of secret animators out there, and I'd love to encourage them.
Yeah, I think it's just the same advice which you would apply to being on a normal team, really, is just kind of preparation and make sure you've got your workflow down and check your gear and things like that. Like, everyone says that, but I think for animation it's important too to kind of like just factor in how long things take and just get little bits of practice done. You can kind of prepare things beforehand too, like you can like maybe do a few drawings of backgrounds and things which you might need, or you can kind of work on making a character rig beforehand and having that ready to go and ready to puppet along the stage, Yeah, it would be cool if there were more animated 48-hour films, because I always get excited when I see an animated film on the screen. I think a lot of other people do too.
Yeah, and it's pretty impressive. I mean, in such a short period of time, to be able to achieve something like that, it's always pretty wow.
And a lot of the really big winners of the competition have been animations, so there you go.
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, well, thank you, Sam. It's been a pleasure having you. You're not entering this year, are you?
No, I'm taking a little rest
Taking
this
a
year.
hiatus. Will you be back?
I'll be back next year for sure.
Nice. Awesome. Cool.